The certified letter arrived on a Monday morning in January, and I knew it was trouble the moment I saw the Pine Ridge Estates HOA logo embossed on the envelope. I ripped it open standing in my driveway in Burlington, Vermont, still wearing my pajama pants and winter coat, my breath fogging in the 15-degree air. "Dear Mr. Brandon Williams," it began, and my stomach dropped. "This letter serves as official notice that you are in violation of Pine Ridge Estates Community Guidelines Section 7.4.2 regarding excessive noise disturbances. On January 14, 2025, at approximately 9:47 a.m., you were observed operating a snowmobile that exceeded acceptable noise levels for residential areas. You are hereby fined $750, payable within 30 days. I read it 3 times, standing there like an idiot while my coffee went cold in my hand. $750 for clearing my own driveway with my snow machine in Vermont during winter, where we'd just gotten 18 inches of powder overnight. The letter was signed by Patricia Callahan, HOA president, with her flowing signature that looked like it had been practiced in front of a mirror. I'd met Patricia exactly twice since moving into Pine Ridge Estates 6 months ago. Both times she'd found something to comment on. First, my mailbox being 2 inches too far forward, then my trash cans being visible from the street for 20 minutes past pickup time. I went inside and called my neighbor, Mike Randolph, who'd lived in the development for 8 years. $750. Mike whistled low. "That's steep even for Patricia. What you do, run over her cat." I cleared my driveway with my Ski-Doo, the same one I've been using all winter. "Yeah, but did you do it before 10 a.m. on a weekend?" I thought back. It was Saturday morning. "I started around 9:30 because I had to get to my daughter's hockey game by 11. Mike laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "There's your problem. Patricia pushed through a noise ordinance last year. No lawn equipment, power tools, or recreational vehicles before 10 a.m. on weekends. She claimed people were complaining about leaf blowers waking them up. It's a snowmobile. I was using it for snow removal, not recreation." Good luck explaining that distinction to Patricia. She once fined the Hendersons $200 because their wind chimes were too loud. I thanked Mike and hung up, staring at the letter again. The thing that really got me was the amount. $750 for using my own equipment on my own property to perform necessary winter maintenance. I'd moved to Pine Ridge Estates because the houses were beautiful, the lots were spacious, and I'd thought the HOA would be reasonable. The previous owner had mentioned the association was active, but I'd assumed that meant they organized block parties and kept the common areas nice. I should have known better. That afternoon, I drafted a response letter explaining that I was using the snow machine for practical purposes, not recreation, and that it was necessary given the heavy snowfall. I kept it polite and factual, included photos of my buried driveway, and requested the fine be waived. I sent it via certified mail on Tuesday. Patricia's response arrived Friday. Denied. The letter was 2 sentences long. Your appeal has been reviewed and denied. The fine stands. Payment is due by February 14, 2025. That weekend, I was in my garage organizing tools when I heard it, the unmistakable roar of a 2-stroke engine. I stepped outside and saw Patricia's landscaping crew working 3 houses down, using gas-powered leaf blowers to clear snow from her walkway. The noise was incredible, echoing off the houses. I checked my watch. 9:15 a.m. on Saturday morning. I stood there watching them work, an idea forming. If Patricia wanted to play the noise game, I could play too, but I needed evidence. Monday morning, I drove to Burlington and bought a professional-grade decibel meter from an audio equipment store. The clerk, a young guy with tunnel ear piercings, showed me how to use it. It measures sound pressure level in decibels, he explained, demonstrating with his phone playing music. Normal conversation is around 60 to 70 dB. Anything over 85 can cause hearing damage with prolonged exposure. What about snowmobiles? Depends on the model and how well maintained it is. Most are between 78 and 95 dB at 25 feet. And leaf blowers. He grinned. Those things, 90 to 115 dB easy. They're loud as hell. I bought the meter for $240, which I figured was an investment if it could save me $750. The following Saturday, I waited. At 9:03 a.m., I heard the familiar rumble. Patricia's landscaping crew had arrived right on schedule. I grabbed the decibel meter and my phone, making sure the phone was set to video. I walked down the street to Patricia's house, a massive colonial with black shutters and a perfectly manicured lawn that somehow stayed green even under snow. Two men in green uniforms were using backpack-style leaf blowers to clear her front path and steps. I stood on the public sidewalk, about 25 feet from where they worked, and held up the decibel meter. The reading jumped immediately, 92.3 decibels. I recorded video of the meter, making sure the timestamp was visible, and swept the camera to show Patricia's address clearly on her mailbox. One of the landscapers noticed me and said something to his partner. They kept working, but I could see them watching me nervously. "Morning," I called out, keeping my tone friendly. "Just taking some measurements." The front door opened and Patricia emerged, wrapped in a cream-colored cardigan that probably cost more than my snow machine. She was somewhere in her mid-50s, with blonde hair cut in one of those angular bobs that suburban moms always seem to have. Her expression was already pinched with irritation. "Brandon," she said, his name sounding like an accusation. "What are you doing?" I held up the decibel meter. "Measuring noise levels. Your crew is hitting 92 decibels. That's pretty loud for 9 a.m. on a Saturday, wouldn't you say?" Her eyes narrowed. "They're performing necessary property maintenance." "Interesting. So was I when I cleared my driveway, but you fined me $750. That was different. You were using a recreational vehicle." "I was using a snow removal tool, same as your guys are using leaf blowers for snow removal." I gestured at the crew. "By the way, it's not even 10 a.m. yet. Aren't they violating the noise ordinance you created?" Patricia's face flushed. "The rules allow for professional landscaping services to maintain property values." "Really? Can you show me that exemption in the bylaws?" She didn't respond, just stood there clutching her cardigan tighter. "Tell you what," I continued, keeping my voice level. "I'm going to measure the noise level of my snow machine. If it's quieter than your leaf blowers, I expect you to waive my fine. Sound fair? The decision has been made. The fine stands. We'll see about that." I walked back home, adrenaline pumping. Patricia watched me the entire way, and I could feel her glare between my shoulder blades. That afternoon, I set up my test. I positioned the decibel meter on a tripod in my driveway, exactly 25 feet from where I'd be operating the snow machine. My Ski-Doo was a 2023 model, relatively new and well-maintained. I'd specifically chosen a model marketed as quieter than average because I didn't want to be that neighbor. I started recording on my phone, showing the meter, the distance, and the time. Then I fired up the Ski-Doo and let it idle for 30 seconds before driving it in a straight line past the meter, the same way I would when clearing my driveway. The reading held steady, 78.6 decibels. Even when I accelerated slightly, it only jumped to 82.1. significantly quieter than Patricia's leaf blowers. I recorded several runs, getting consistent readings. Then I compiled all my video evidence. Patricia's landscapers hitting 92 decibels before 10 a.m., my snow machine maxing out at 82 decibels, and screenshots of the relevant sections of the HOA bylaws that made no mention of exemptions for professional services. Sunday evening, I drafted another letter to the HOA board. This one was longer and included all my evidence. I explained that if Patricia's professional crew could operate equipment generating 92 decibels before 10 a.m., then my equipment generating 82 decibels should certainly be allowed. I pointed out the inconsistent enforcement of HOA rules and requested not only that my fine be waived, but that Patricia publicly apologize for the selective enforcement. I knew the apology would never happen, but I figured it was worth asking. I sent copies to all 7 HOA board members, whose addresses were listed in the community directory. Patricia was president, but there were 6 others who supposedly had voting power. 3 days later, I got a phone call from Dennis Martinez, the board treasurer. "Brandon, this is Dennis Martinez from the HOA board. You got a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" He sighed heavily. "I saw your letter and the video evidence. Look, between you and me, Patricia tends to be a bit overzealous sometimes. I'm going to bring this up at the next board meeting." "When's that?" 2 weeks, February 1st. You're welcome to attend if you want to present your case in person. I'll be there." "Good. Fair warning, though, Patricia's not going to be happy about this. She doesn't like being challenged." "I gathered that," Dennis chuckled. "Yeah. Just keep documenting everything, okay? If she retaliates in any way, we need to know about it." I thanked him and hung up, feeling slightly hopeful. At least one board member seemed reasonable. The next 2 weeks crawled by. I kept my head down, went to work at my engineering firm, took my daughter Emma to hockey practice, and lived my normal life. But I also kept my eyes open. Patricia's landscaping crew came by every Saturday morning, right around 9 a.m. I documented each visit, recording the noise levels, always getting readings above 90 decibels. I compiled the data in a spreadsheet, creating a clear pattern of violations that Patricia herself was authorizing. On January 28th, a Tuesday, I received another letter from the HOA. This one informed me that I had an excessive number of vehicles parked in my driveway and was violating the community aesthetics guidelines. The vehicles in question were my truck, my wife's sedan, and Emma's old beater Honda that we were fixing up together. 3 vehicles in a 4-car driveway. I took photos immediately, time-stamped and geotagged, showing my 3 vehicles in a driveway clearly designed for 4. Then I took a walk through the neighborhood and photographed at least a dozen other houses with 3 or more vehicles visible, including Patricia's house, where 4 vehicles were parked, 2 in the driveway and 2 on the street in front. This was retaliation, pure and simple. I sent another letter to the full board, attaching the photos and Dennis's contact information, explaining that this was clearly selective enforcement and harassment. I also noted that if this continued, I would have no choice but to seek legal counsel. February 1st arrived cold and clear. The HOA meeting was held in the community clubhouse, a nice building near the neighborhood entrance with a meeting room that held about 40 people. I arrived 15 minutes early and was surprised to find about 20 other residents already there. Apparently word had gotten out. Mike Randolph waved me over. "Heard you're fighting the man. Figured we'd come support you. Appreciate it. Didn't expect a crowd." "Are you kidding? Half the neighborhood has been fined for something ridiculous in the past year. We're all rooting for you, man." The board members filed in at 7 p.m. sharp. Patricia took her seat at the center of the table, flanked by Dennis and the other 5 members. She looked composed and professional in a navy pantsuit, her reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. "This meeting of the Pine Ridge Estates HOA board will now come to order," Patricia announced, rapping a gavel against a wooden block. "First order of business, approval of last month's minutes." The meeting droned on through various boring administrative items: new streetlight installations, pool maintenance contracts for the summer, a proposal to update the playground equipment. Patricia ran the meeting with military efficiency, barely letting anyone get a word in edgewise. Finally, after 45 minutes, she said, "New business. We have a resident appeal regarding a noise violation fine. Brandon Williams, you have 5 minutes to present your case." I stood up, laptop in hand. "Thanks. I'll need to show some video evidence. Can I connect to the projector?" Patricia looked annoyed but nodded. "Dennis, help him set that up." It took a few minutes to get my laptop connected, during which Patricia kept checking her watch pointedly. Finally, the screen flickered to life. "On January 14th, I began. I received a $750 fine for operating my snowmobile to clear my driveway at 9:47 a.m. on a Saturday. The fine cited excessive noise levels and violation of the weekend noise ordinance." I clicked to the first video. "This is footage I took on January 21st at 9:15 a.m. on a Saturday morning. As you can see, a professional landscaping crew is operating gas-powered leaf blowers at Patricia Callahan's residence. The timestamp is visible in the corner." The sound of the leaf blowers filled the room, loud even through the mediocre speakers. Several people winced. I measured the noise level using a professional-grade decibel meter. As you can see here, the reading shows 92.3 decibels at a distance of 25 feet. I let that sink in for a moment, then clicked to the next video. "This is my snowmobile, same day, measured under identical conditions. Same distance, same meter. The reading shows 78.6 decibels at idle and maxes out at 82.1 decibels during operation. That's 10 decibels quieter than the leaf blowers being used at the HOA president's home." Murmurs rippled through the room. Patricia's expression remained frozen. "Furthermore," I continued, clicking through the spreadsheet, "I've documented 4 separate occasions over the past month where professional landscapers have operated equipment exceeding 90 decibels at Patricia's residence before 10 a.m. on weekend mornings. Each instance is a clear violation of the very noise ordinance I'm being fined for breaking, except my equipment is significantly quieter." I advanced to the photos of driveways. "I've also recently been cited for having too many vehicles in my driveway, 3 vehicles in a 4-car driveway. Here are photos of 12 other homes in this community with 3 or more vehicles visible, including Patricia's home, which currently has 4. This selective enforcement suggests retaliation for challenging my initial fine." I clicked to the final slide, which showed the relevant sections of the HOA bylaws. The noise ordinance makes no mention of exemptions for professional services. It simply states that no noise-generating equipment shall be operated before 10 a.m. on weekends. If this rule is going to be enforced, it needs to be enforced consistently. I unplugged my laptop and sat down. "Thank you for your time." The room erupted. People started talking over each other, and I caught phrases like "about time someone said something," and "I got fined for less than that." Patricia banged her gavel. "Order, order, please." It took a full minute for everyone to settle down. "Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Williams," Patricia said, her voice tight. "The board will take your evidence under consideration and vote on your appeal. We'll notify you of our decision within 5 business days." Actually, Dennis spoke up, I'd like to motion that we vote tonight. This seems pretty cut and dried. Second, said another board member, a woman named Carol Jensen. Patricia's jaw clenched. Very well. All in favor of waiving Mr. Williams's fine. 6 hands went up. Only Patricia abstained. Motion carries, Dennis announced. The fine is waived. Additionally, I'd like to motion that we review all fines issued in the past 12 months for consistency. Second, Carol said again. This time, Patricia was forced to vote. The motion passed 7-0. The rest of the meeting was awkward. Patricia rushed through the remaining agenda items and adjourned early. As people filed out, several residents came up to thank me or tell me their own HOA horror stories. Mike clapped me on the shoulder. That was beautiful, man. Patricia looked like she wanted to strangle you. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be on her Christmas card list. You never were. I drove home feeling vindicated but also slightly worried. Patricia didn't seem like someone who would let this go gracefully. I was right to worry. 2 days later, I received a notice that my garbage cans were being stored improperly. They were in my garage, where they'd always been, but apparently now they needed to be in enclosed storage that wasn't visible even when the garage door was open. The following week, I got cited for my house numbers being the wrong font. They were the same numbers that had been there when I bought the house 6 months ago. Then came a notice about my mailbox post needing repainting, my doormat being non-compliant with color schemes, and my garden hose being visible from the street. Each citation came with a fine ranging from $50 to $200. Within 3 weeks, I'd racked up over $1,000 in violations. I documented everything and forwarded it to Dennis, who called me that evening. This is harassment, he said bluntly. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. This has gone too far. Appreciate it, Dennis. I'm about ready to hire a lawyer. Hold off on that for now. Let me handle Patricia. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for February 26th. This time, I came prepared with even more documentation. I'd taken photos of every single house in Pine Ridge Estates, noting violations of the same rules Patricia was citing me for. Mailbox posts that needed repainting, garden hoses left out, doormats in various colors, garbage cans visible in garages. The hypocrisy was staggering. This meeting was closed to residents except for me, since I was the subject. The 7 board members sat around the table looking tired and frustrated. Patricia sat rigidly, her hands folded in front of her. Dennis opened the meeting. Patricia, we need to talk about the citations you've been issuing to Brandon. 11 violations in 3 weeks, all for extremely minor infractions, many of which haven't been enforced in years. I'm simply doing my job as HOA president, Patricia said coolly. Maintaining community standards. You're harassing a resident who challenged you, Carol said. We all know it, Patricia. It needs to stop. I cleared my throat. If I may, I've brought evidence that might be relevant. I pulled out my tablet and started showing the photos. This is 2847 Maple Drive. Mailbox post hasn't been painted in at least 5 years. This is 3102 Oak Lane. Garden hose visible from the street. This is 2756 Birch Court. Garbage cans clearly visible through an open garage door. This is 3219 Pine Ridge Boulevard, which is Patricia's address. Her doormat is burgundy, which according to the guidelines she's been citing should be either black, brown, or dark green. I swiped through dozens more examples, each one showing that Patricia herself wasn't following the rules she was using to fine me. I've also documented the timeline of these citations, I continued. Every single one came after I challenged my initial noise violation. In fact, in the 6 months before that, I didn't receive a single citation despite nothing changing about my property. This is textbook retaliation." Dennis turned to Patricia. "Do you have anything to say?" Patricia's face was flushed. "I don't appreciate being accused of misconduct. I've dedicated countless volunteer hours to this community." "No one's questioning your dedication," Dennis said, "but we are questioning your judgment. This has to stop." "I move that we rescind all citations issued to Brandon Williams in the past 30 days, Carol said. "And I move that we require all future citations to be approved by at least 3 board members before they are issued." The vote was 6-1. Patricia was the only dissent. After the meeting, Dennis pulled me aside. "Listen, I think you should know something. A few of us have been talking. Patricia's been increasingly difficult to work with over the past year. This situation with you has kind of been the last straw. What are you saying?" "We're going to call for a vote of no confidence at next month's regular meeting. If it passes, she'll be removed as president." "Wow, I wasn't trying to get her removed. I know. But this isn't just about you anymore. She's been playing favorites, bending rules for her friends, and coming down hard on anyone who questions her. The snowmobile thing just brought it all to light. I drove home that night feeling weird. I just wanted to clear my driveway without getting fined. I hadn't meant to start a civil war in my HOA, but things were about to get much worse. The following Saturday, I was in my garage when I heard shouting. I stepped outside to find Patricia standing in my driveway, her face purple with rage. "You've ruined everything," she screamed. "I've put years into this community and you come in here and undermine me at every turn." "Patricia, calm down. I didn't do anything except defend myself. You turned the board against me. You've poisoned everyone with your lies and your manipulated evidence." "The evidence wasn't manipulated. Everything I showed was factual." She stepped closer, jabbing her finger at my chest. "You think you're so smart with your decibel meter and your videos. You have no idea what you've done. Patricia, you need to leave my property." "Or what? You'll call the police. Go ahead. I'm sure they'd love to hear how you've been harassing an HOA president." "I think you have that backwards." She was almost hyperventilating now, her hands shaking. "The vote is next week. They're going to remove me. Do you understand that? After everything I've done for this neighborhood, they're going to remove me because of you. Maybe if you hadn't retaliated against me, this wouldn't be happening." "Wrong thing to say." Patricia's eyes went wild and she grabbed a snow shovel that was leaning against my garage wall. For a horrible moment, I thought she was going to swing it at me. "Patricia, put that down. You don't tell me what to do." She raised the shovel and brought it down on the hood of my truck with a loud bang, leaving a dent in the metal. I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Patricia, stop. Right now." She hit the truck again, then turned and smashed one of my headlights. Glass scattered across the driveway. "Patricia." She finally stopped, breathing hard, and seemed to realize what she'd done. The shovel clattered to the ground. "I'm calling the police," I said, already dialing. "No, wait, I didn't mean to, I just—" She looked at the damage, then at me, and something in her expression shifted. She turned and ran to her car, a white Lexus parked at the curb, and sped away. The police arrived within 10 minutes. I showed them the video, the damage to my truck, and explained the ongoing situation with the HOA. The officer, a middle-aged guy named Sergeant Powell, took notes and had me file a formal report. "We'll go talk to Mrs. Callahan," he said. "This is pretty clear-cut vandalism and possibly assault, given she was brandishing the shovel at you first. I just want her to pay for the damages and leave me alone. Understood? We'll be in touch." I called my insurance company and filed a claim, then called Dennis to let him know what happened. "Jesus," Dennis breathed. "Is she losing it completely?" "Sure seems like it. The police are going to talk to her. The vote of no confidence is scheduled for next Thursday. This pretty much seals it. She's done. The next few days were tense. Patricia was charged with vandalism and given a court date. The damage to my truck came to $1,800, which my insurance covered minus my $500 deductible. Patricia's lawyer contacted me offering to pay the deductible and asking me to drop the charges, but I refused. She'd crossed a line. Thursday evening came, and the community room was packed. Word had spread about Patricia's meltdown, and it seemed like everyone wanted to witness her removal. The vote of no confidence took less than 5 minutes. 6 board members voted yes. Patricia voted no. She was officially removed as HOA president. Dennis was elected interim president, and one of his first acts was to motion for a full audit of HOA finances and all enforcement actions taken in the past 2 years. "We need to know exactly what's been going on," he explained to the crowd. "If there have been other instances of selective enforcement or improper conduct, we need to address them." The motion passed unanimously. As the meeting wrapped up, Patricia stood and addressed the room. Her voice was shaky but defiant. "You're all making a huge mistake. This neighborhood is going to fall apart without proper leadership. Mark my words, property values will plummet and this place will become a circus." "Patricia," Dennis said gently, "it's time to go." She gathered her things and left without another word. I actually felt a little bad for her. She'd let power go to her head, and now she was paying the price. The audit took 2 weeks. What it revealed was shocking. Patricia had been selectively enforcing rules for years, primarily targeting residents who questioned her or who she personally disliked. She'd waived fines for her friends while doubling them for others. She'd approved community expenditures without board votes, including paying her own landscaping company over $40,000 in the past year alone for maintenance that should have cost half that. In essence, she'd been running Pine Ridge Estates like her personal fiefdom, using her position to enrich herself and punish her enemies. The board held another emergency meeting and voted to pursue legal action against Patricia for misappropriation of HOA funds. They also voted to refund every fine issued in the past 2 years and start fresh with consistently enforced, reasonable rules. Patricia's vandalism case went to court in April. I testified about the incident and provided my video evidence. She was found guilty and ordered to pay restitution, perform community service, and received a year of probation. Her lawyer negotiated to keep her out of jail, but barely. The civil case for embezzlement was settled out of court in June. Patricia agreed to repay $75,000 to the HOA over 5 years and resign from any future HOA positions. She also had to sell her house and move out of Pine Ridge Estates. The shame was too much, apparently. She couldn't face her neighbors anymore. Her house sold in July to a young couple with a toddler. They seemed nice, and notably, they had 3 cars. The new HOA board under Dennis's leadership was night and day different from Patricia's regime. They updated the bylaws to be more reasonable, removed ridiculous rules like the doormat color restrictions, and changed the noise ordinance to exempt necessary maintenance activities like snow removal, regardless of whether they were done personally or professionally. They also implemented a new rule requiring all citations to be approved by at least 3 board members, with photo evidence and clear documentation of the violation. No more arbitrary enforcement. Emma and I finished restoring her Honda in August. It was a good summer project, and she was thrilled to have her own car for her senior year. We parked it in the driveway without a second thought. In September, new neighbors moved in next door. They had a boat, an RV, and 3 motorcycles. Under the old rules, Patricia would have had a stroke. Under the new rules, as long as everything was properly registered and maintained, it was fine. Mike Randolph threw a block party in October to celebrate what he called the liberation of Pine Ridge Estates. About 40 families showed up, including Dennis and most of the board members. People shared their Patricia horror stories, and we all laughed about how ridiculous things had gotten. "You know what's funny?" Mike said, beer in hand. "Property values have actually gone up since Patricia left. Turns out people like living in neighborhoods where the HOA isn't constantly harassing them." "Who would have thought?" I replied, grinning. My snow machine got plenty of use the following winter. Vermont blessed us with storm after storm, and I was out there regularly clearing my driveway and sometimes helping elderly neighbors with theirs. Nobody complained. Nobody measured my decibel levels. Nobody sent me threatening letters. It was just a normal neighborhood again. Dennis served out the rest of Patricia's term and was re-elected president by a landslide the following year. He kept things running smoothly and fairly, treating everyone equally, and focusing on actual community improvement rather than petty enforcement. The whole experience taught me some valuable lessons. Sometimes standing up for yourself creates waves, but those waves can lead to positive change. The HOA system isn't inherently bad, it just takes reasonable people to run it properly. And never, ever underestimate the damage one power-hungry person can do when given unchecked authority. I also learned to read HOA bylaws very carefully and to document everything. Those videos and photos I took saved me thousands of dollars in fines and probably prevented even more harassment. Emma graduated high school in the spring and got accepted to University of Vermont. She's studying engineering, following in her old man's footsteps. We still work on cars together when she comes home on weekends. The Honda we restored turned out great. It runs smooth and she's taken good care of it. I taught her everything I know about maintenance and she's become pretty handy with a wrench. It's those moments, working side by side in the garage, that remind me why I fought so hard to keep my home the way I wanted it. This is our house, our property, our life. We maintain it well, we're good neighbors, and we follow reasonable rules. That should be enough for any HOA. These days, Pine Ridge Estates actually feels like a community instead of a dictatorship. People chat over fences, kids play in the streets, and nobody's afraid of getting a citation for having the wrong color doormat. Last month, we got about 2 feet of snow overnight. I fired up my ski-doo early Saturday morning, around 8 a.m., and spent 2 hours clearing not just my driveway, but also the driveways of 3 elderly neighbors who can't handle that much snow anymore. The sound of the engine echoed through the quiet morning air. Nobody complained. A few people even waved thanks as I worked. When I finally packed it in and headed inside for hot coffee, I saw Dennis out clearing his own driveway with a snowblower that was definitely louder than my machine. He gave me a thumbs up. This is how it should be. Neighbors helping neighbors, reasonable rules reasonably enforced, and HOA leadership that actually serves the community instead of ruling it. Patricia moved to a condo in South Burlington from what I heard through the neighborhood gossip chain. No HOA there, ironically. I wonder if she appreciates the freedom or if she misses the power. Probably the latter. The court ordered restitution payments come in like clockwork every month. The HOA board put that money into a community improvement fund. They used some of it to upgrade the playground equipment, install better lighting on the walking paths, and resurface the tennis courts. Things that actually benefit everyone. Sometimes I drive past Patricia's old house and see the new family's kids playing in the yard. They have one of those big inflatable snowman decorations up during winter, the kind Patricia absolutely would have had a meltdown over. It makes me smile every time. The whole saga, from that first ridiculous fine to Patricia's removal and everything after, took about 8 months of my life. 8 months of stress, documentation, meetings, and conflict. But it was worth it. Not just for me, but for everyone in Pine Ridge Estates who'd been suffering under Patricia's tyrannical rule. Mike told me recently that HOA dues actually decreased this year, because Dennis and the board eliminated the excessive landscaping contracts Patricia had arranged with her own company. Turns out we can maintain our common areas just fine for 30% less money when there's no corruption involved. Who knew? The decibel meter sits on a shelf in my garage now, unused but kept as a reminder. A $240 investment that ended up saving not just me but an entire neighborhood. Sometimes the best defense is simple, objective facts. Numbers don't lie, and video evidence is hard to dispute. I've thought about writing up the whole experience as a case study for other homeowners dealing with HOA problems. There are so many stories out there of people being bullied by their associations, paying ridiculous fines for minor infractions, and feeling helpless against boards that operate like petty tyrants. My advice would be simple. Document everything, know your rights, understand the bylaws, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Most HOA boards operate on the assumption that residents will just comply rather than fight. When someone actually challenges them with evidence and facts, the whole house of cards can collapse. Of course, not every HOA situation ends this cleanly. Patricia was particularly egregious in her abuse of power, and I was lucky to have board members like Dennis and Carol who were willing to do the right thing once they saw the evidence. But even in less dramatic situations, the principle holds. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. Bring issues into the light, involve other residents, create community awareness. Most people don't want to live under an oppressive HOA. They just need someone to take that first stand. Emma asked me once if I regretted buying in an HOA neighborhood. I had to think about that. On one hand, the 8 months of fighting Patricia were stressful and time-consuming. On the other hand, I love our house, the neighborhood is beautiful, and now that things are running properly, the HOA actually does add value. No regrets, I told her. We made it better. That matters. She nodded, understanding. That's my kid, always ready to stand up for what's right. I like to think I taught her that, though her mother deserves credit too. Speaking of which, my wife Sarah thought I was crazy when I first decided to fight the fine. Just pay it, she'd said. It's not worth the hassle. But as things escalated and Patricia's true nature became clear, Sarah became my biggest supporter. She was the one who suggested I photograph every house in the neighborhood to prove selective enforcement. She's always been the strategic thinker in our family. The whole experience also made me appreciate good governance. Whether it's an HOA, a town council, or higher levels of government, the people in charge matter enormously. Give power to someone who's fair-minded and community-focused, and good things happen. Give it to someone petty and vindictive, and everything goes wrong fast. Pine Ridge Estates held elections for the full board this past fall. The turnout was the highest it had been in over a decade. People care now because they've seen what happens when they don't pay attention. Dennis was re-elected, Carol kept her seat, and 3 new members joined who all ran on platforms of transparent, fair governance. Patricia didn't even try to run. She was technically still eligible for a board position, despite being removed as president, but she must have known she'd be crushed at the polls. The new board's first action was to post all HOA finances online in a transparent portal where any resident could review them. Income, expenses, vendor contracts, everything. No more mystery about where our dues were going. They also created an appeals process for any fine or citation, requiring a hearing before an impartial panel of randomly selected residents. It meant people couldn't just be arbitrarily punished anymore. There were checks and balances. These changes seem obvious in retrospect. Of course, an HOA should be transparent and fair, but it took a crisis to make them happen. Sometimes that's how progress works. I still use my Ski-Doo every winter without worry. The sound of that engine no longer fills me with anxiety about potential fines. It's just the sound of me taking care of my property, helping my neighbors, and living my life. That's all I ever wanted. The freedom to live peacefully in my own home without unreasonable interference. Is that too much to ask? I don't think so. The legal bills from the whole ordeal ended up being minimal. I consulted with a lawyer a few times for advice, but never had to retain one formally since the board ultimately sided with me. Patricia's vandalism was criminal rather than civil from my perspective, so I didn't need representation for that either. All in all, I spent maybe $800 on legal consultations and the decibel meter, still less than the original fine would have been. Patricia's legal bills were probably astronomical. Criminal defense lawyer, civil litigation, settlement negotiations. I almost felt bad about that, but then I remembered her swinging a shovel at my truck and the feeling passed. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, as Emma likes to say. This summer, we're planning to redo our back deck. It's old and needs replacing. Under Patricia's regime, I would have needed HOA approval, submitted to 3 different committee reviews, and probably gotten denied for something arbitrary like the wrong shade of stain. Under the current board, I submitted my plans. They verified it met basic safety and aesthetic standards within 72 hours and approved it. Simple, easy, reasonable. That's how it should work. Construction starts next month. We're going to have a big deck party when it's done and invite the whole neighborhood. Community building, the way an HOA should encourage. Looking back on everything, the moment I really knew things would work out was during that first contentious board meeting when Dennis and Carol backed me up. Finding allies matters. If the entire board had been in Patricia's pocket, I would have had a much harder fight. That's another lesson worth sharing. HOA boards are made up of your neighbors. Get to know them. Go to meetings even when you don't have a complaint. Vote in elections. Stay informed. A little engagement goes a long way toward preventing situations like mine from developing in the first place. Of course, some HOAs are beyond saving. If the bylaws are truly unreasonable and the entire board is corrupt, sometimes the best option is to sell and move. Life's too short to be in constant conflict with your neighbors, but Pine Ridge Estates was salvageable. Under all of Patricia's nonsense was a basically good neighborhood with decent people. It just needed better leadership. I'm glad I stayed and fought. Emma's glad too because she didn't want to change schools her senior year. Sarah's glad because she loves our house. Everyone won except Patricia, and honestly, she brought that on herself. The snow is starting to fall as I write this, big fat flakes drifting past my window. The forecast calls for 6 to 8 inches overnight. Tomorrow morning, I'll be out there with my Ski-Doo, clearing the driveway before the day really gets started, and nobody will find me for it. That simple freedom, the ability to take care of my own property in a reasonable way without fear of arbitrary punishment, is worth everything I went through to secure it. Some battles are worth fighting. This was one of them. The neighborhood kids are already outside, catching snowflakes on their tongues and starting to build snowmen. In a few hours, the street will be full of sleds and laughter. Tomorrow, after I clear my driveway and help the elderly neighbors, maybe Emma and I will take the ski-doo out on the trails for real recreation, the way it was actually designed to be used. Patricia would probably still find something to complain about, but Patricia's gone, and good riddance. Pine Ridge Estates is our home now, truly. Not just a house we own in a development where we're afraid to step out of line. A real home in a real community where neighbors look out for each other and reasonable rules are reasonably applied. That's the American dream, isn't it? Own your piece of property, live your life, raise your family, and not have to deal with petty tyrants on a power trip. I achieved that dream, defended it when necessary, and came out the other side stronger for it. The snow's really coming down now. Beautiful. I love Vermont winters, always have. The quiet after a fresh snowfall, the way everything looks clean and new, the excuse to spend time in the garage working on equipment or inside by the fire with family. Tomorrow morning, when I fire up that ski-doo, I'll probably think about Patricia and her stupid fine one more time. Then I'll smile, enjoy the crisp morning air, and get to work. Because that's my right as a homeowner, my responsibility as a neighbor, and my privilege as someone who stood up for himself and won. The decibel meter proved I was quieter than their leaf blowers. The video evidence proved selective enforcement. The documentation proved harassment. And in the end, justice prevailed. Not because the system automatically works, but because people like Dennis and Carol and all those neighbors who showed up to support me made it work. That's the real lesson here. Communities are made up of people. Good people can create good outcomes if they're willing to stand up and be counted. I stood up. Others joined me. We fixed what was broken, and now I can clear my driveway in peace. That's victory enough for me.